Joel, did you know diarrhea is hereditary?
What?
Yeah. It runs in your genes.
Got him! Got him!
That is so goddamn stupid.
You laughed, motherfucker.
I didn't laugh.
Yo, what up, y'all? Welcome back to another Q Reviews where we're going over Last of Us episode 4, Hold My Hand. But before I want to get into this episode, I want to talk about something. I'm seeing them online. I'm having a lot of debates online, and I got to type to people to understand, like, okay, episode 3 deviated from the game, right? It was a totally different thing that we didn't get in the game. I believe it was between Bill and Frank, and I believe Frank ended up hanging himself because he hated Bill so bad. And you just get a note of that. You don't get a fleshed out story. And people are mad because this wasn't in the game. We should have spent more time with Ellie and Joe. This wasn't like this in the game. Well, the game is the fucking game. This is an adaptation of the game. So how boring would that shit be if we just we watched the show beat for beat and it was exactly like the game and they really changed nothing? Like, will people be satisfied? I don't know. I think they elevated the material by making it different. You know what I'm saying? So now we got a whole fleshed out caricatures, you know, that we can relate to, and you can see that love can exist in this world, even how dark it was. Because really, Bill is almost just like Joel, right? You know, like they were so protective within themselves that they couldn't open up to love and open up to a new relationship. So it does correlate with the story between Ellie and Joe. It directly correlates with them because Joe is such a hard ass for losing Sarah that, you know, he now has to protect Ellie. And so he's opening himself up to that, which leads into this episode 4, which I think is just a bonding moment between Joe and Ellie. We get this one's almost, people saying like the adaptation of the game, this is almost exactly like the game, like beat for beat. Like when they're in the back of the car, she's looking at the magazines and shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, what is this? This is too long. Why are the pages stuck together? That's almost verbatim of what the game is. And then when they get rushed by the hunters, and it's that action scene, and the hunter throws the brick at the window, and, you know, and they get into this action scene, this shootout, and they have to hide. I will say that the game handled it a little better. It just seemed more intense in the game because you got to get out and fight right then and there. You know, action scenes, it's not going to be action scene after action scene, beat after beat in the show because it's a game. They got to put those action sequences in here to keep the game interesting. If you just watch the story of Last of Us, sure, it will be great, but I think the show is better when you break it down to characters and building this relationship now, especially in this episode between Joe and Ellie. He's opening it up. He was hard ass, you know what I'm saying? So he's opening it up to the jokes now, you know, the scarecrow jokes or the diarrhea jokes here.
Joel, did you know diarrhea is hereditary?
What?
Yeah. It runs in your genes.
Got him! Got him!
That is so goddamn stupid.
You laughed, motherfucker.
I didn't laugh.
It runs in his genes. I love the way he was fucking just cracking up. He actually felt joy. We haven't seen Joe smile at all in the whole series until this episode. He actually was fucking giggling like a giddy little schoolgirl, like Bill with that strawberry in episode 3. Like, so good, so good. So I do appreciate this episode, but I will say this is not my favorite episode of the season. I would say this is probably the weakest episode of the season because the other 3 were 5 out of 5. They were so damn great that this was just pretty okay. I thought the action scene, like I said, with the hunters was pretty good, but what I wish if it was more violent in the scene. First off, I want to talk about the boy, one of the hunters that got caught by Joe and Ellie. I think he was choking out Joe. I think Joe was down to his last breath. So like, and Ellie pulls out the gun she stole from Bill's house in episode 3 and shoots him, and he begs for his life. Like, oh no, I was just playing. See, let me take him. I want my mommy. You know, he was begging for life. Shout out to that actor because he did a damn good job pleading for his life, which is interesting too. Like Ellie always wants to be the badass. That's what you see her with her dirty, hairy, her taxi driver move, you know, pointing the gun in the mirror, want to be badass, want to be this badass killer. She's infatuated with guns until she actually had to pop somebody, and then she almost had to finish him off. But like at this moment, you get another bonding moment because Joe killed plenty of people. You know, he killed infected. He killed. There's even a point where she asked, "Have you killed innocent people?" And he didn't say anything. Well, but he was like, "Well, yeah, you know, shit. What the fuck you think, son? You know, what I'm saying, this is apocalypse. Anybody can get it. You know." And then we get this awesome bonding moment, which is in the game, and you see them practicing the gun, how to hold the gun properly, and how to use it, because now she is a product really of this environment. In order to survive this trip, Ellie has to learn how to kill too. And speaking of killing, I missed this in this episode. I need more of that visceral violence. I know everybody say like, yeah, The Last of Us is the best story narrative, but for real, you know why I like playing The Last of Us? Fucking people love fucking violently in that fucking game. The Last of Us is the most violent game I ever fucking played in my life. You stab people in the neck, you know, you see it squirt out, you see their eyes rolling back at the head. I remember one time in The Last of Us Part 1, I got a flamethrower and I burned one of the affected, like, yeah, she's burning up, and then she started crying, like, like she felt bad. She was like, felt horrible, like, oh shit, I feel horrible kind of killing that person. But yeah, but not really, fuck that bitch, she's infected. But that makes it different than zombies kind of, because they're still alive, you know what I'm saying? They're still alive and they're still kind of people, but they're driven by the cordyceps. So I wanted more violence in this episode, you know what I'm saying? Bring it to, because that's part of their characters, you know what I'm saying? It's not just gameplay elements. Joe is a violent person, and Ellie, you know, no spoilers, she might end up becoming a very, very violent person. So I think they need to show it in the game. They do it to a point, but I think it can be pushed even further. That's just a small gripe from me, because, you know, I'm a horror fan. Like, if you're gonna show it, this HBO, the leaders of Chernobyl, let's see that shit. Let's see that visceral violence even more. Another thing that threw me off of this episode was the character of Kathleen. I think she was a leader of the hunters, and I think she got some revenge story. I have to watch it again. I'm not sure what was going on, because it was so off-putting, just kind of was abruptly just thrown in the episode. I couldn't really follow it too good, and I didn't really get behind her character motivation, so it made that part of the episode a little bit boring to me. You know, it was hard to latch on to it. Like, I don't know if I'm feeling this, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna see those in the next episode. They might end their story, but what was cool, that this episode is definitely a setup for the next episode, which is out Friday, which is dope because of the Super Bowl. You see that big crater in the ground, you see it started to breathe and come up, and like, those who didn't play the game, it's going to be a big creature, I think, called the bloater, that's going to come out, and I think it's going to probably handle most of the hunters. They probably going to have this big action scene maybe in this episode, or, you know what I'm saying, the next episode. So that's exciting. I think we're about to see that next. So overall, if I had to grade this episode, I'm gonna give it a 3.5. Like, the rest of them have been 5 out of 5s, but I can't cap just because it's The Last of Us. I just felt uninterested at some parts. Not the relationship between Joel and Ellie. It only had one main action scene, and I wish that one was drawn out a little more to make it more violent. Yeah, once again, guys, thanks for checking out this video. What do you think about the adaptation in the video game? You think it should be 1 and 1? To me personally, I think that's absolutely boring. Like, don't deviate too far from the video game and make it non-recognizable like a lot of IPs do. You can tell they are taking incredible attention to detail in The Last of Us, from the Easter eggs, the set design, everything looks like The Last of Us, the characters act like The Last of Us, but people have a serious problem when they deviate a little bit from the source material. I've seen the same thing happen from Game of Thrones, like the book snobs, like, yeah, well, in the book, maybe that's better in the book, but this is an adaptation of the book, but this is an adaptation of the game. So if they take liberties and if it elevates the story, I'm all with it. What you guys think? Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And once again, guys, thanks for watching. Yeah, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you really like this content, consider subscribing to the Q Review family, and don't just stare at it. Eat it. Peace.
I'm out cold, you hoes been exposed. Walk up on you slow with the foe and unload. You got more left for dead on the road. I strode when your car got towed.